Hi, thanks for having me. It's good to be in Berlin. It's my first time in Germany, and it's been awesome. So I'm going to tell you a bit about my journey to Clojure. I guess it's not the usual journey, but it's been a fun ride, one that I hope continues. And it kind of started here. You know, I saw this quote somewhere in high school when I was learning to code, and I was like, interesting, interesting. So this idea went to the back of my mind and just sat there like a worm waiting. And then I went to varsity and I learned AI, and still it sat there. But I never actually looked at Lisp. I just knew, this Lisp thing that when I want to do AI, I must learn. And so they splashed of it in our AI textbook, and I was like, okay, that's awesome. But still, I resisted. And then one day after marking 600 handwritten exams, I was tired and weak. And then Lisp struck. And then it went downhill from there. And at the same time, I just decided to start watching Star Wars. It was about 2015, no judgment. I started late. And I saw this comic, and I was like, I want an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. And so I went, and I hit Google. And I saw this, and I was like, look at that logo. So elegant. The yin and the yang. Such balance and harmony. And I went to the Wikipedia page, and I was like, 1958, ugh, it's a bit too old for me. So I clicked on related languages, and there it was, Clojure. And I was like, oh, that's also elegant. It's got square brackets, but I think I can dig it. So I looked around, read some articles, and I said, you know what, let me get started. So I went to getting started with Clojure, and I found Lane again. And I went to the install instructions, and those dreaded words, built from source, weren't there, and I was like, awesome. And I'm like, let me start. And then I saw it, and I froze. This is broccoli. It's disgusting. It's important, but disgusting. It's just like Java. And I was born in Java, molded by it, and I didn't see the light until I was already a man. I was not going back to Java. And so I did what we all do when faced with an impossible challenge. I went to Google. And Google referred me to its weird cousin, Quora. What's the closest language to Clojure but doesn't need a JVM? And there it was, Pixie. It was a turning point. It was a Lisp. The guy who wrote it had worked on core async. It was based on C, so it was really fast. And I was obsessed. I would spin up a REPL to do any calculations. No more calculator, no more cell phone, just the Pixie REPL. There I was. I must admit I was really obsessed, and I realized that Pixie didn't have a website, so I'm like, the first thing I'm going to do is right this injustice. I will build Pixie a website. And I did. And like I said, I was obsessed. So it's a bit over the top. Now, I was like, okay, I've built a site. The injustice has been rectified. It's on the internet. Anyone who wants to find this majestic language can find it. Let me go learn it. And so I went to the README, and I found this, and I was like, awesome. I was like, what the hell is Freenode? And so I spent one Friday evening with a glass of wine, learning IRC and how to get onto Freenode, and I was like, what a mission. But for Pixie, it's worth it. Well, let me tell you who uses IRC, or rather, who doesn't. Pixie devs don't. I went onto that IRC channel, and it was just me and the wind. And so my spirit was broken, and I was like, you know what? Let me just look at the issues and see the history of this majestic language. And so on the issues, I found something small. There was a Gitter link, and I clicked on it, and there they were, all the Pixie devs hiding on Gitter. And so my adventure started. I didn't really have a problem to solve with Pixie, so I figured, let me get involved with the tooling. So there was this language, Dust, Pixie Dust. And I was like, let me get involved in building the tooling. And so I started. And as I learned Lisp while learning Pixie. And then I made my first PR because I'd improved the tooling so much, I was like, it's time for the world to have it. And then there was a comment. Why don't you use a let? Okay, maybe I should. And why is there another def? Fair point. And another one. Okay. And I was writing Lisp like it was just another C. It was C, just the brackets were at the beginning and the end. Same thing, right? And so that pull request was brutal. I learned a lot about Git and open source software and rebasing and pull requests. I also learned that I was a lazy Lisper. And I had to take a new approach to learning this majestic, elegant Lisp. And so, a little while down the line, you see there, it was merged in. I had made my mark upon the world. But then something stranger happened. It was the 17th of January, 2017. And there was nothing about that cloudy sky that said strange and mysterious things would soon be happening. But they happened nonetheless. That elegant site I made it to the front of Hacker News. I was like, wow. I was like, yes, our time is now. Clojure, beware. And I clicked on the link, and my heart was broken. Hylang, the creator of Pixie, was giving up. He said it was a fun side project, but it was the end. And so we were stuck. We had lost our fearless leader. But I was like, no. We made it to the front page, we will soldier on. And so I tried to write a web server in Pixie. That failed, but I found a gist with all the answers. So I copied that code, and cool. Like, okay, now I need a client. That failed again, and again, and again. So I was like, okay, I need a new approach. And so I did the unthinkable. I went to Python, a language that uses white space as part of its structure. Savage. Now the thing is, I gave it a good try, but using set v instead of def, I mean, that's kind of barbaric. It wasn't magical, it wasn't Pixie, but the mascot was cute. And after a while, I just went back to Pixie. And then I realized Node is written in C at its core. Pixie can interop with C. Interesting. So I went deep into the documents, the man for libuv, and found myself working on, the Linux very close to the metal, and trying to make an IP address trying to resolve an IP address from a domain name, and it just wasn't working. I had so many tabs open, my Chrome kept crashing, I had so many repos open, and I was like, okay, you know what? Do I continue battling an immature language, or do I embrace the JVM? This was a turning point in my life. And since I'm standing here, you can guess how that played out. I became a UX designer. Thank you, Berlin. It's been good. Thank you for listening to my story. But you see, the problem with Lisp is that it's there, like a worm, burrowing. And a year later, I relapsed. I embraced the JVM, and I started my Clojure journey. At least Rich Hickey hadn't broken my heart yet, so I'd give him a chance. Now, getting started with Clojure wasn't easy. I mean, who makes a language you can't Google? Some men just want to see the world burn. And so, in this dark time, I turned to my community. Luckily, they're very supportive. 8,000 kilometers away from here, in sunny Pretoria, we're a very engaged community. All our members attend every meetup. We code almost every day of the week. And we had a very good meetup recently, coding in the sun. It was wonderful. We even managed to get a picture with the whole group in it. A one-man wolf pack. And I slowly lost motivation for my Clojure journey. And then, one day, I came across a random podcast called the Cognicast. And it was amazing. There was people in a faraway land who just wrote Clojure all day. They knew it, they got paid to do it, and I was like, wow. And I listened episode after episode on the way to work, on the way back from work, while I was washing the dishes. It was amazing, and I learned a lot. And I dreamt about this magical land where people could just go down the road to a conference and meet other developers. I was like, this is great. These were my people. Well, until Miska and Alan stole our host away, and he went to work at another company, and slowly but surely the Cognicast came to an end. But I learned a lot in that time, and that if you're learning a language, having your own community is very important, even if you don't meet them face to face. But hearing their voices, reading their blogs, going through the code, it all helped me grow. Each of them had a special place. Giga Squid taught. She wrote a book, Living Clojure, that I learned Clojure from. Craig and Dara ran the Cognicast. It was entertaining. You laughed. Now, the guy in the bottom left-hand corner, can't say his name, but he writes really, really good code. So whenever I wanted to be inspired, I'd go to his repositories and just look at the source code. I'm like, wow, it's only 5 lines. Amazing. Someday. And then Rian Devitt was my boss at the time. Very understanding guy. I told him about Clojure 100 times, the same story, how this weekend I'd written another CSV parser, and each time he'd listen, as if it was the first time he was hearing it. And then Halgari, the heartbreaker. And so, this community had given me so much, and I felt I needed to give back to the community as well. And so I wrote a little post on Medium, how to build your first Clojure server. And it was actually amazing, looking back, I wrote it thinking, okay, this will be useful for some people, and when I forget how to do this, I can go back to this article. But there's a really good response, and many people have read it, and it's helped them. And it reminded me that we often underestimate the importance of sharing in our learning process. And that was a reminder to me that when you share what you're learning, it cements your learning and helps you grow in that endeavor. And so it was my first lesson on my journey to confident Clojurist. And then it dawned on me. When I was a lecturer, this was something I knew. So I had forgotten this lesson. Maybe I had other lessons that could help me in my Clojure journey. And being a designer, I figured, let's put together a problem statement. Let's analyze this from the user perspective. And it's great because you have a user of 1, and that's the user that matters. And so I really looked at it. What is confidence, for this user? And as usual, I went to Google. And confidence is that feeling you can rely on something. That self-assurance. But how do you know you're confident? And I scratched my brain, made personas, put stickies on the wall, and then it came to me. As a developer, there is a sign. A sign that's not immutability, but a sign nonetheless for confidence. And there it was. The universal sign for confidence. So I realized the thing I need to do is write tests. So those CSV parsers I told you about, guess who got tests? Those parsers did. Each one of them. But after writing, 20 tests about something that doesn't really do anything or solve a problem, it gets a bit old. And so I realized you also have to be fired up. Fired up about the problem. But how do you get fired up? You use Clojure in anger. Right? How do you do that? Well, you see, in South Africa, the unemployment rate is 28%, and that's only among people who are still looking for work, not those who never tried or those who have given up. So that's pretty high. And of those who have jobs, 60% of them are employed by small businesses, right? And of those small businesses, 70% of them fail within 2 years. So we kind of have a problem here, right? We have many unemployed people, and the things that give them employment keep failing. And so here's something that, I was passionate about, I could use in anger, right? And so a few colleagues and I came together with an idea to build a business that helps these small businesses, thrive, gives them financial information for human beings, not like a general ledger for an accountant. And it was our 4th startup, so I think, I was like 4th time lucky. This is a place to use Clojure. I'm passionate about the topic. It's a real problem. It'll add value. And so we started. And now when you're running a business, the things that you took for granted before, when you're just making CSV parsers, start to become important, right? And that's where the benefit of using something in anger. Because now you're using it for real. The stakes are high, and failure is possible. And so simple tools matter. Luckily, I had stumbled across a really good tool, and so I kept to it. Simple infrastructure is also important. I can tell you so many times I had a PHP server running and I forgot to configure the firewall properly, and I couldn't access the site, and the code was broken, and I spent hours trying to fix it, but it was just a firewall rule. So, bye-bye firewall rules. I'm done with that. Let's keep it simple. Hosting, do I really want cPanel and all that admin? Or I can just use Firebase hosting, deploy from the command line. And so by limiting the complexity in my environment, I could focus on writing Clojure code. And so our MVP was very straightforward. It was a front end, not in Clojure, hosted on Firebase, and a simple backend in Heroku, written in Clojure. And all it was an email saying thank you for signing up. And so we validated that people actually wanted this product. We made sure we didn't tell any of our friends or family, because they always say, yeah, it's awesome, right? So we just put some ads on Facebook and Instagram and put it out there, and there was good feedback. So like, okay, let's start to build this business. And so we decided, okay, we're gonna have users, so we need a solid auth. And there's two things I remember from varsity. Two important lessons for every developer. Never write your own encryption algorithm, and never write your own auth. So I was like, auth 0, here we come. But I looked at those prices. Fourth startup, is it gonna work? Am I gonna spend money again? I was like, no, I don't know about this. And so I went to Firebase. Yeah, it's easy to use, it's free, as many users as you want, that's for auth. And so I wrote a Clojure library called Charmander that let me use the auth of Firebase. It's like, awesome. And the nice thing about this was that I actually learned things that I wouldn't have otherwise learned, on tutorials. So I made a library, it was cool, my program depended on it, and I wanted to use it on other programs. But then I have to now publish the library. So I learned about clojures and PGP keys and transferring a PGP key from one computer to another. So you learned all these things that you otherwise wouldn't do. And so this is the advantage of using something in Angular, that you actually get the real problems. So our stack looked like that, right? So the customer sees HTML and JavaScript and it's beautiful, and then I just see Clojure. Now that, okay, now we need a place to store the data, right? A good database. And the Atomic had really got down in price. It was just $1 a day. I was like, I don't know, $1 a day is gonna work, seems like a lot of money. Maybe AWS, I hear that's super cheap. Now AWS has many pages that give you example pricing and how to calculate it, but there's never an actual number. So I was like, this seems like a trap. This seems like I'll put it on there, spin it up, I'll do an Instagram ad, 10,000 people will come there and then bankrupt. So I was like, no AWS. But guess who has a free DB? Firebase, you guessed it. And so I was like, again, let's do this. And so I expanded Charmander to work with Firestore. So now I had a free DB and free auth, and I could interact with them using Clojure. Oh, almost. So for the auth part, I didn't have to use the SDK, right? I could get the public key from the Firebase server, decrypt the token, make sure it's the right thing, and off we go. But to write the database, I had to use the JDK. So I had to learn how to interop with Java. And no one says, pick me, I want to interop with Java. But when you're solving a real problem, you kind of have to. And so I learned to interop with Java. And our stack grew. But still, I only interact with Clojure. But all was not well in free paradise. There were some problems. Firebase was pretty fragile, right? I may have deleted our prod DB 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times. And so I figured this has to be solved. But there's no way to back up a Firestore. Right? Well, you can. You can go manually, go into the G-Cloud console on the web and back it up. And I was like, come on. This is 1995, really. So I figured, I'll write a library. So I wrote a library called Magma, because Magma is like hard fire, right? And so what it did was, it interacted with the SDK, more Java interop. I'm getting good at this Java interop thing. And whenever I'd push a branch to master, it would back up the prod DB, and there we were, aces, no more fragility. Right, stack is now still more Clojure, it's awesome, everything's working. But then I had this nagging feeling at the back of my head, right? So let's say someone wants to send an invoice on our platform, and as they hit send, I deploy a change, or it switches over to the new instance. What happens to that request? What does happen? I was like, this sounds like a job for Kafka. I need a stream. But when you go look at the cost of Kafka, it's like, do I really want to stream that badly? I'm good. Or am I? Again, Firebase comes to the rescue. So Firebase's real-time database is amazing, right? It's real-time, it's fast, it's a JSON object, basically. So it's super easy to back up. And so Google wrote a backup for it, so I didn't have to do that. And so I modeled Firestream after a library by a guy called Pierre, who has an interface to Kafka. So I was like, my thinking was, if I make a thing that's like Kafka, that has the same interface, when eventually we scale and $100 is nothing to us, and we're like, haha, who wants dollars? We can just switch the include, and there we go. We go from Firestream to Kafka. And there we were. There was our stack. Amazing. Clojure almost all the way through, and no drama, no firewalls. But then I started to have this doubt, right? These awesome libraries that I've written. I wrote something called Google Credential because apparently Google expects you to have a JSON file on disk that you read in. And I was like, that's ridiculous. If I'm deploying to Heroku, I don't know if there's a disk or if it changes. So I wrote a library that would load that the secrets or the IAM settings from the environment. So it's awesome. So here my library is, everything's working. But what happens when I have to update something and now it's being used in production? What if I break the things? And so I started to write examples, right? This is the data call, this is what it returns, this is a function. And writing the examples is actually to help me so that I don't break something in the past. So when I'm having errors, I can just make sure that I'm getting the output I think I'm getting. Awesome. Start writing more and more tests. And now when you have the fear of breaking your production system, tests aren't, an inconvenience. They're critical because you need that confidence in your system. And so I started writing tests for everything. But then I was like, what if I'm only writing the tests that are easy, right? Started worrying. And so I discovered a concept called code coverage, right? Making sure my tests are touching every line of my code. And so on this journey now I was learning, because I had to. I couldn't just say, that's too much admin, I'm not going to do it. Because actually the problem I wanted to solve. And so I learned about coverage. And I mean, is that not a thing of beauty? And in the end, I now have, each of those libraries have tests and good coverage, and I can rely on them. And a few times those pipelines have helped me. I've made a change, deployed it, it's broken, but it's broken in the library, not in my production instance. And I can remember the exact day, when I became confident in Clojure. It was the 22nd of May, 2019. We were at the end of a sprint. One of my designers needed some information about whether customers select, give us marketing consent. And, a few hours left, needed information to make the design. And so I got the logs from our dev team. And I spun up a REPL. And while she was watching me, went through the file, cleaned it, counted the yeses and the nos, and bam, there was the answer. I was live coding in a REPL with someone watching me. That is true confidence. And you can see it there in my GitHub activity. From that day, it just became a sea of green. Just code coming out. confidence in Clojure. And so you might ask now, what's next for this confident Clojurist? Well, I could pay that $1 a month for Datomic, or, hear me out. There's some guys making a thing called Data Hike. It's very similar. It's a data log interface that can persist to disk. And Fireatomic, name pending, could be that thing. And so, when I go on this journey as a confident Clojurist, I want to leave you 3 things to remember. And the three things are: share early and share often. GitHub pages, dev.to or Medium. Write. Even if you think you have nothing to share. The act of writing, as we just heard, helps you crystallize your thoughts and think more clearly, and helps those concepts that you're learning be cemented in your brain. Test. You only get that build passing if you write tests. If you don't write tests, no build passing for you. Right, so just test. And lastly, stay angry. Find the problem you care about enough to solve. And that is the end. Thank you for listening, and thank you for having me in Berlin.
That was so much fun, Alex. I'm just really sad for all the people on the other track. Okay, do you want to take some questions?
Any questions?
Who has questions? Who wants to install Fireatomic?
So, if you were doing it from scratch again, would you do the same thing?
I wouldn't go through Hylang. That was a unnecessary detour. And at the moment, Charmander it's got the token token validation. It's got the DB access, the Firestore access, user management, all in one library. So I've actually split that out because now it's getting a bit clunky. It also means when you make a change, you have to run like 1 billion tests. So I'd also change that. Also, when I started, I wasn't very comfortable reading the Google Docs. Nowadays, I just read the source code because it's a lot clearer. I'd have actually done it a lot with HTTP where possible, so I don't have to have the whole weight of the Java SDK, because the Java SDK, Google's Java SDK is really, really heavy. So I'd also try and do as much as I can with HTTP. So those are the main things I would change.
I have a question if no one else is eager. I saw in your description that you're not, or you don't seem to be working on Stub anymore. Or Stub, yeah.
No, I am working on Stub.
Oh, you are still working on Stub, but you also have another job.
So I'm a designer by day. I actually became a UX designer, no jokes. I work at a bank called Absa in South Africa. Love the job, design by day, and then in the evening, then I write code.
I see.
It challenges both parts of my brain, and keeps me sharp.
Keeps you on your toes.
So hopefully Stub is going to work the 4th time.
Okay, so that's cool. I was curious for the rest of the story there, but I guess it's still to be written. Okay, one more question if there is one. It doesn't look like it. Okay, thank you very much, Alex. That was super fun.
Thank you.